Good Tuesday afternoon to you. My name is Dylan Ratigan. The big story on this Valentine's Day, no love for the state of politics in this country. We've been advocating the need for true electoral reform, from eliminating the super secret super PACs to ballot reform and to gerrymandering against lines in the primaries. Well, now a new Pew poll further confirms that desperate need for major electoral overhaul of this country. It shows just how costly, inaccurate, that's a nice word for wrong, and inefficient the U.S. political system currently is. 24 million people. Remember, there's only 311 million Americans. That's almost 10% of us. 24 million people are either invalid as voters or significantly inaccurate. That is 1 out of 8 voter registrations that has significant breaches, if not actually being completely wrong, dead, completely wrong. The data includes millions of people who either moved and are on the rolls in multiple states or counties but have not been reconciled. 2 million Americans who are no longer alive. 2 million who are dead but still listed as active voters. Why do these things matter? Well, of course, voter registration helps to determine polling funding and precincts, not to mention overall resource allocation in these districts, representatives, and all the rest of it. It is another reason why our election system is so remarkably ineffective, out of date, and utterly out of touch with the actual reality in America in 2012. The instrument we are using is not designed or capable of measuring the intent of the human beings in this country. It's why it's bought and sold, gerrymandered, and done in the back room. Here with us now, Chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, Congressman John Larson. He is pushing a renovation of sorts, if you will, the Fair Elections Act. We'll get into that. Also with us, James Hohman, national politics reporter at Politico, who is probably too familiar with the data that we were just referencing. Congressman, does anything that just came out of my mouth this afternoon on MSNBC surprise you?
No, but it did remind me quite a bit of that old line that I wanted to be buried in St. Mary's Cemetery so I could remain politically active, but
well, hold on. I'm going to stop with it because you're not surprised. James, from your perspective, you're a reporter, you're in D.C., you're on the beat. You know, were you surprised with the revelations in this data?
Not at all. This is the same data we've been seeing for years, Dylan. After the 2000 election debacle in Florida, everyone said we were going to fix this. Everyone talked about it. Nothing happened. Now we're seeing these same numbers again, and it's clear something, a lot of experts on a bipartisan basis are saying needs to be done.
So clearly we're out to lunch, okay? We are out to lunch every way possible. Congressman, you are obviously not only aware of this, but have prepared some form of legislation that's attempting to address some of this. Right. Tell us what the legislation that exists right now and how it would address this, and then what else we have to do.
Dylan, I think you're absolutely correct, though, at the outset of this. We have now formed a task force within our caucus to deal with reform on multiple levels as it relates to campaign finance reform, as it relates to election reform, electoral reform. There's a huge electoral college reform movement. This is something that has caught hold with the American people. You know from your tour as well, and listening to people. I mean, part of the core and the main emphasis of the Occupy group has been this whole need for election reform. And as was pointed out, since the election of 2000, and I dare say even before that, there's been grave concern about that, and it's heightened with the amount of money that's pouring in and even further manipulating the system to the point where both suppression of the vote and preventing people from vote. The statistics that you just rolled off are compelling and should be shocking to most Americans, and yet it seems to be gaining momentum, but unfortunately not here in Congress. But we hope to change that. We hope to get the disclosed legislation on the floor and pass that, and we hope that we're in a position as a majority party come 2012 so that we can make significant reform that we don't see emanating right now.
Yeah, I'm suspicious of your suggestion that switching parties, all with all due respect, Congressman, and none intended towards you as an individual, but I think that's the false promise of various political parties telling the American people that they're going to fix things is a little bit insulting at this point. When you look, James, at the actual data, 24 million human beings, more than 2 million of them are dead. These are the sort of things that you read about in a UN audit of a third world banana republic that is known for having rigged and bought elections. But we are discussing the United States of America, whose entire ego and ethos and national identity is predicated on what is more and more revealing itself to be a total marketing scheme and lie, that there is some tool to evaluate the American people that we call an election that has integrity by virtue of the fact that there is some component of actual human beings involved and actual competition of ideas, and we have none of that. Where would you even begin? Where would you point out to somebody? How would you prioritize the horrors?
Well, it's a long list of outrages in plain sight, Dylan, and actually there's an incentive in a lot of states right now. They're pushing these voter ID laws, which are making it harder for people who actually can legally have the right to vote to go cast ballots, but not doing anything to fix the problem that you're outlining. And there's a huge incentive from the conservative base for Republican state legislators in a lot of states, places like South Carolina, that have passed these laws. And so politically, it's not hurting anyone to not fix these problems.
And the beautiful thing about the fact that politically no one can be hurt, Congressman, is because of the closed primaries in the gerrymandered districts, you can have a congressman with a 20% approval rating in a gerrymandered Republican district that's never going to elect a Democrat. He never has a primary challenger. He continues to be bought off. He doesn't reform anything. And you guys, people with your job, are basically like anointed nobility that have been put up for sale to the highest bidder, with an 80% chance that every gerrymandered district will never change hands so long as the royal parties, thus thou Democrat and thou Republican, done give food unto us.
Wow. That was a lot, Dylan, but let me say a couple of things. First, I would say there's a little bit of a false equivalence. I recognize that people, when they look at the system, and rightfully so, say, look, a pox on both your houses. You've had opportunities to change, and you haven't. But I say false equivalence because you look at the people that are in the forefront of reform of the system. I'm proud that my colleague Walter Jones has joined me with the Fair Elections Now Act. But if you look down the list of people that are both in terms of a constitutional amendment and looking at a number of the issues that you have, it's primarily Democrats that are out in front leading the way. Now, I say false equivalence also because we're in almost like a nuclear arms race. And as you point out, this is it's going to be mutual self-destruction, primarily of our cherished democracy, if we don't get this under control. But no one is going to unilaterally disarm in this process, which, of course, makes the whole system reek of hypocrisy and make it so that it's very difficult to look people in the eye and say, hey, look, we've got to have campaign finance reform. We've got to change this system. But in fact, I think that's what people recognize and understand. I just think that we're going to provide the best opportunity to do that. Notwithstanding, I believe we're going to be successful in getting the Disclose Act through on the floor this year.
That would be insulting if you couldn't, considering it's to expose private billionaire money being spent explicitly to annihilate other people's reputations without disclosing it. That's what they call low-hanging fruit. It's a high five for that, but it's not a huge. It's amazing that that's considered an accomplishment. James, if you were to look at again, the knowledge that politicians of both stripes love to tell us about how they're going to deal with gerrymandering, redistricting, double voter rolls, using the prison system as a way to manipulate redistricting, dead people, taking money, secret money. I mean, it stinks to high heaven. I wasn't around for Tammany Hall, but it couldn't have smelled too much worse than this. When you look at what it is that our politicians respond to, which is the threat that they are going to lose their jobs. What do the American people have to do to create a credible threat for these people to lose their jobs when they have the districts locked in and gerrymandered with no primary challengers? So they've basically decapitated the American voters' ability to throw them out of their jobs. thus giving them roughshod ability to run over our country with corruption?
Yeah, Dylan, it's a huge structural problem, and that's why a lot of the innovative things that are trying to fix the problems that we've been talking about are happening at the state level. Just today, 8 states have come together on a bipartisan basis, some progressive Republicans, and they're working to fix this problem with the voter rolls. They're saying, let's create a system so that we can track people who move from state to state, from Ohio to Oregon, and make sure that dead people aren't on the rolls. It seems like not much to ask, but at this point, it's only 8 states. It's going to be a pilot project in 2012. If it's successful, maybe others get on now. That's a very small thing when you're talking about these big problems, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
All right, listen.
I think James is right on that, too, Dylan. I mean, our state legislative bodies are the laboratories for democracy, and we never hurt when America gets an overabundance of democracy working, and that's exactly what's going to be needed here.
Yeah, it's tough to have a democracy if the voter is not allowed to take the politician's job away because you got the back end rigged. It's a kind of a tricky thing.
They got to vote, and that's
no, they don't got to vote, because that's actually a lie. Because if you vote into a gerrymandered district with an incumbent unpopular Republican who has no primary challenger, you're actually just baiting them into engaging a rigged system, which I would argue is more alienating than being honest with them about the breach of the social covenant and saying you actually are not given a choice because you live in a dominant gerrymandered Republican district with no challenger, and that is the problem we have to solve. But we can do it another day. I appreciate everything you do, Congressman, and I appreciate your point.
I appreciate the structural concerns that